Hey everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, LoneStarMopars.com. Got something very exciting, at least in my opinion anyway, we're going to take a look at today. And if you hear anything weird in the background, it is like a 1970s space heater. Saying that based on like the brown and gold color scheme. And I'm trying to keep my feet warm because it's freaking cold out here yet again. So, what we're going to do, this is something that I have wanted for a very long time. For the longest time, I wanted a set of ratcheting wrenches. This goes back to like when I was a kid, you know, making Christmas lists still. And as you might have guessed, I never got a set, but you know, now you got your self-established, got your own cash flow, you can do with it what you want. And if you recall, we picked up the Capri set, and this time around though, with the you know, holiday pricing for Christmas, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, we were able to justify pulling the trigger on this. Now, this is SK Tools X-Frame Ratcheting Wrench Set. This is, of course, SAE, Imperial, whatever you want to call it, standard. And the reason for that is the vast majority, believe it or not, of what I do is still on old Chrysler cars, and that subsequently means I don't need the metric set. So, I will say, though, the metric set, if you love these wrenches and you want to pick them up, I believe it's a 12-piece set, so you do get a wider assortment. More on that later, but when I recently came back and was searching for ratcheting wrenches, this is the one that caught my eye. This is what appealed to me. It's kind of a weird backstory, but anytime I build stuff, I kind of go, I triangulate it. I do speed holes, that's what I call speed holes. I put these crazy hole patterns in it. And ultimately, when I fabricate stuff, I try to make it as strong as it can be, but also as light as it can be. And that's where this whole X-frame design kind of just really appealed to me. Now, what didn't necessarily appeal to me was the price. SK Experience, I have never purchased my own. I don't have any SK tools here. I might have a couple in my granddad's box, I'm not sure, but I don't have any that I've purchased myself. Now, at work, we have some ancient SK stuff, primarily ratchets and sockets. I assume at one point in time it was complete sets. I don't exactly know the logic. I wasn't there doing purchasing at that point in time, but really, really old SK stuff, and it's still functional, so that is quite impressive that it survived in an industrial environment for that long. All that added up to me pulling the trigger on this because the price dropped. And so the price had been coming down a little bit, but of course for the holidays, that's when people typically slash it the most. They figure they're going to push products at the end of the year. And where this would typically retail right now from sktools.com, as you can see on the box, for $275.99, even they have cut it down, I believe, to like $175. But I was able to pick this up from Amazon for $140. There was a listing for $128. You had to pay like $7 or $8 in freight, but a lot of times if it's a third-party seller on Amazon, I'm a little leery because of knockoff potential. And obviously, since I hadn't done any business with that person, I didn't want to risk it, so I just went ahead. With the freight you would have had to have paid on the $128, I wound up spending about $6 more, but nonetheless, we saved about $130. We almost got this for half off. That's a pretty good deal in my opinion. Now, let's go ahead and just kind of take a look at the packaging here. I will admit there was a plastic wrap here, so it wasn't just like a floppy pizza box type of a design. I wanted to see these. I got these in. It was freaking cold. Couldn't get to the shop until here on the weekend, and I have not opened them, though. I wanted that to be a virgin experience. But SK Tools, if you did not know, made in the USA. Western Forge in Colorado Springs. It did all the Craftsman screwdrivers, the acetate handle ones back in the day. A bunch of the hand tools, if I'm not mistaken. SK actually purchased Western Forge, if you were not aware, so that's kind of interesting. But the lowest arc swing in the industry at 1.7 degrees, which is pretty crazy. I remember as a kid when I was wanting ratcheting wrenches, that was not a thing. So needless to say, technology has come a long way since then. 7-piece set, we're going to include 3/8, 7/16, half-inch, 9/16, 5/8, 11/16, and 3/4. So I will also tell you, I don't know what it is. This is kind of more of like a video perspective, just so we can keep tabs on this. But I used just a standard Canon for years. Sometime, I think this year or late last year, I picked up an SL2, which is the best camera I've ever owned. Problem is, on the video, it auto-focuses. And I know a few of you have commented on that. It's like when I'm trying to get my hand in the frame, you know, to showcase something and we can't see it, like, you know, if I wanted to highlight made in Germany, you know, it takes forever with the autofocus, which I don't think it's supposed to, but it does. And I'm switching things around here. I've always said I've never had time to play with the camera, and that's true because I haven't, and this is what I'm doing now. So I hope it doesn't suck, but so far it seems to be looking better in my opinion. I have no issues with this. Backside is kind of where the business is now. This is important to me because this is 6-point sockets, 6-point mechanism here in the wrench. That's not going to round the bolt or the nut off, and that's important when you have something that you're not wanting to replace. It was expensive, that's old, that you don't have on hand, that sort of a thing. 6-pawl technology as well. Now, when we get into it's right here actually. 216 positions. I want you to think about that. Think of all the ratcheting wrenches you have had, right? To understand that there's 360 degrees in a circle, and every 1.7 degrees we're making an adjustment across 216 positions with 6 pawls. That's pretty crazy. If you've dissected these, if you watch people destroy their tools on YouTube so we can see how they work, you're not typically going to have something like that, and that is quite impressive, I must say. So, I-beam handle distributes added force evenly for superior strength. We're dedicated to providing you with tools that are premium quality, precision crafted, made in the USA with American steel, and backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Now, Ideal Industries, I guess, is who owns SK Tools now. Ideal, I can't ever think of what all we get at work from them. It's mainly electrical stuff, and I don't know if they have the Scotch locks or some tape, linerless stuff. I'm not sure, but I know I have some of their stuff. But this is the money shot. This is what we've been waiting for. We're going to go ahead and open this bad boy up. And I have to say, again, I always try to tell people the packaging is more than often not an indication of the quality of what's inside. The presentation, the fact, boxes are very expensive, by the way, if you've never had to get custom boxes at work or for something you're doing yourself. The design, the shape, any intricacies you provide, especially color printed, all that stuff is extra, and it winds up costing a ton. These are unforeseen things consumers often don't think about. So when we have the green and the, you know, sort of like trapezoidal shape going on, that tells me that they paid for the packaging, and that means that tells me they are proud of what they are packaging. So, right here we got a simple one-sided flyer, and we would like to thank you for purchasing your new SK X-Frame ratcheting wrench. And as you probably know, the SK X-Frame wrenches provide the smallest swing arc in the industry, which combines the performance and power that professionals like you expect. The SK team, from concept through design and manufacturing, has taken great pride in delivering the X-Frame wrench line. We are committed to producing the finest quality tools that are proudly made in America. So, if you want to share your thoughts with them, x.frame@skhandtool.com. One of the thoughts that we might share with them will be coming up at the end of this. But the way this is not a foam tray, which I have actually grown to like, I must say. And I think because I don't have fingernails, I'm going to have to flip this. But once again, anytime you see something fancy like that, that was not cheap. And if you don't believe me, find out whoever does boxes and packaging in your local area and get a quote from them. And you will be amazed what people pay for boxes. So this is it. This is the presentation. It is on a wrench rack. The SK Tools logo is on the rack on the back. We'll take a look at that once we get the plastic off. But it is 7-piece, again, 3/8 to 3/4, and that is honestly the biggest reason I brought in the Capri tools, and that is honestly why someone like myself might actually contact them at this email with feedback. Now, I'm assuming I'm going to like these, but the one thing that I don't like, and I want to say this before I open these, before I handle them, before we even delved into anything, this set stops at 3/4, and that's a bit of a buzzkill for me. What I would like to have seen is something more along the lines of what we had with Capri. Not necessarily smaller, although that would be nice as well. If we could come in 5/16 and 1/4, you do actually use quite a bit, and many times it's in tight situations, like with body panels. where you would actually come to appreciate having, you know, a ratcheting wrench because of the low profile. You don't have to come in with a stubby ratchet and a tiny socket, for example. Those would be nice. The problem is going up, like at work. I would love to have ratcheting wrenches. There's many instances when we're doing frame outs on things where we've got 5/8 and 3/4 bolts, right? And we come in and we don't use the impact on them because we're working with something delicate with a shallow insert and plastic type of a thing. And you got to spin it up by hand and then, you know, technically torque it down, which we would do, but it's easier. I know this sounds counterintuitive, but when you're not using an air tool or you're not using some electric battery powered impact, I've gotten in the habit, I mean, I can spin a wrench like nobody's business, especially like a 15/16. I can just sling that thing, and I'm really fast with it. And the problem is, if I wanted to bring this set into work, I would be missing 7/8 and 15/16, which are two that I would use a ton. And the problem with that is that they are not available. This isn't just like a 7-piece set that covers most sizes to get you going. This is it. And I've researched this from when I first decided I wanted these up until when I bought them, and even today when I was firing up this little 70 space heater, I went in and I checked. I was doing everything I could to see if they made these. Now, the part number on this set is 849. And then if you look at the wrenches, like our 3/4 here is 844, and then it's, you know, descending down the line here, so this one would be 838. Obviously that covers our 7 wrenches in the set. So my, you know, inferencing skills would say part number 845. Maybe we come in and see if we can find that and maybe locate, you know, a size up in this, you know, a 7/8, 15/16, right? No dice, nothing. Did the same thing trying to go down, so that is really the big limitation. Now, for a lot of people, this will cover every size you need, particularly like, you know, small engine shops, so on and so forth. You know, this would be ideal, but that is a big limitation. If you love these and you think, man, I'm going to go out and, you know, kind of like if you bring in a couple, say a KC Tool screwdriver set from one of the employees, just so you get an assortment and you're like, man, I love that Philo line. You can go in and you can buy other Philo screwdrivers, right? And if you need a crazy length one, you know, or an oddball tip, you can do that. With the X-frames, the biggest complaint I have is that we are limited to these 7 sizes. Now, in metric, again, they do 12 sizes. But here, I would love to have, even if it's not included in the set, I would love to have the ability to purchase a standalone 7/8, 15/16, and possibly smaller. Now, obviously, you save a little bit of money when you buy things in a set, but if it's something you really want, it's kind of like sockets, right? Typically, a standard starter socket set, you're going to go up through maybe 7/8, 15/16, and maybe a 1-inch. But if you needed an 1 1/8, 1 1/4 for like a crank bolt or something, you're not going to have that included in a standard set, but you could come in and purchase it separately as a standalone item. That is all that I ask, because if these perform as good as they look, I'm going to love them. They're going to last me a long time. By the way, there's a lifetime warranty. So if we take this off and the pawl pops out, we can just send a picture, send it in, get a replacement essentially. But I would love to see them expand this. Now, at some point in time, you got to say, well, you know, you shouldn't really be using a wrench that big, you know, with a ratcheting mechanism. But like I said, I feel like up through 1 inch is fair game, and particularly going smaller as well. So, that said, let's go ahead and get this off a little bit better. I tried to peel the plastic so you could appreciate the super chrome finish. But right here, I'm going to go ahead and spin this around. In the backdrop there, you can kind of see you've got the teardrops, or like the I-beam in the wrench itself designed, so that's an appreciated design component. But the SK logo there, and then of course you can hang this wrench rack. If we were to go full vertical here, you can kind of see how it's going to be oriented. Some of these shifted a little bit, and now they all shifted, but hey, that is life, right? So this gives you an idea what the backside would look like for hanging. Obviously, if you're going to put this in a toolbox, you're just going to have it laying flat anyway. But how do they look? They're unnatural position, right? And if you were curious about the durability and the strength of that, now you know. So, may not be the best wrench rack in the world, but it'll get the job done. So, I want to start right here with our 3/8 wrench. Now, something I want to highlight is how slim these are. Check that out. That is bizarre. As someone who's used Craftsman wrenches for the majority of my life at home, even some of the ones at work are Craftsman's. Oh man, that feels really nice. Shouldn't have done that. That is a tiny. Now, a lot of people have complained, and again, I don't have high-end expensive tool truck stuff, so this to me, it's almost razor blade thin. I know it's not, but in comparison, like my Craftsman's, I'm used to having that pad on them, right? If you got old Craftsman's, you know what I'm talking about. This is pretty lightweight, actually, I have to say. Now, right here is the ratcheting mechanism. Let's go ahead and bring you in on that, and just listen to this. Oh, that's crazy. Typically, when you have something that ratchets, especially like our, old cheap ratchets from Craftsman and stuff, it's, you can kind of hear it. I mean, this is just, it's almost like a clock. Listen to this. That's crazy. You can sort of feel it engaging, if your thumb and index finger are where mine were. That's pretty freaking impressive here. So, there's our 3/8 now. Let's pay attention here. Stamped on both sides, we've got 7/16 and SK obviously upside down, and then we flip it, we have the same thing. So orientation is going to be, this would need to be on the left side for either orientation, whether you're having it, and I guess really there's not much, they seem to be unilateral, it's not like this side dips down X degrees and this one's Y degrees. It seems to be the same, so they should sit the same if you do go flat. But right there, again, you will want the ratcheting mechanism on the left and the open end on the right in order to have the markings visible there. So once again, each one's going to be the frame. We're going to have the ratcheting mechanism, the sort of I-beam cutout, which I personally love. I think little things like that are awesome, and I've never seen it done in wrenches like this, which is sort of what's so appealing and different about these, aside from the great gear mechanism. But then you've got your size, your branding, and your part number. So again, some people hate part numbers, some people love them, but it's a situation where if you're like, hey, my 7/16's busted, you people need to replace it, they're probably going to say, even though they would know, what's the part number? And since it's on the wrench, that kind of eliminates the guesswork out of that. Now, the business end of the wrench, you got to realize these aren't just for the ratcheting mechanism. It is right here, and it is pretty nice as well. Nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy. It doesn't have any of the, state-of-the-art crazy stuff, but looks very nice. 3/8, 7/16. Here's our 1/2 inch right here. I gotta say, man, they glide. Again, I'm coming off the cheap Craftsman stuff, which is pretty decent, I have to say, the US stuff. And these are a whole different ballgame. So by far, this would be, if you're curious, probably the nicest set of wrenches I've ever held in my hand. Now, how they perform, how they last, that remains to be seen. Here's our 9/16. Man, that is like butter. It is insanity, I'm telling you. So 5/8, if you can ever get your hands on these, if a friend has them, and that's really a good thing. I would personally love to have had the opportunity to have held these in hand, maybe use them, whether it's a demonstration at the store or if a friend has them, because this is a lot of money, and man, check that out. Yeah, got my dirty hoodie on because it's so cold. But that's our 5/8 right there. And we got 11/16 and then 3/4. Again, my biggest knock thus far is just the sizes. Now this one's got a little bit more heft to it as a 3/4, still fairly light though. And I want you to pay attention. This is the biggest we've got. This is the best look I can give you at their ratcheting mechanism. Again, 6 point, not 12. Are you ready? Here we go. That, I have never heard something like that. I mean, that is crazy. That is genuinely impressive. Let me just give you the drop down here. You ready? That's impressive. I hope that the video and the sound is conveying that to you, but I'm accustomed to something that does not have that many positions on it. Again, that sounds like we're working on like a Swiss clock or something. Now, to be fair here, I want to do a quick comparison. This is my trusty old Craftsman, and again, this is Again, to be fair, if you're like, well, Craftsman's junk, blah, blah, blah. These are the U.S. ones, so I got these when I was a kid, and they were still made in America at that point in time, and they've served me well. And that pad that I spoke of, you can see the profile of the wrench is a little thicker, and then it just looks way thicker, and that's because both sides have the pad. Whereas a lot of tools now, they would eliminate the pad and they would just have it etched into the actual wrench for a slimmer profile. It's not the case here, so we're adding some pretty significant when you consider there's both sides with it. And this is what I've known. This is all I've had here at home, and many of the ones at work are Craftsman's that we use. If we take the 5/8 here, and then we take the 5/8 Craftsman, and I think this is probably where people would say these X-frames are too thick, but check that out. I'd say this is a very similar profile between these two. The X-frame might, if we factored in the pad, I think it would be about the same. So if you're looking for just a super, super slimline wrench, this may not be your choice. But if you're looking for what I think might be the best ratcheting mechanism, this one is definitely in line. Keep in mind, I'd started to go with the Huskies. I was able to pick those up, have them in hand at Home Depot, and I could tell that they weren't good. They did not seem like this. Even though the price is way lower and you would get them replaced, I thought, man, you know, the set didn't have the sizes I would wanted to. I would have had to add in. The Capri stuff was there. It was in the tray. It was a more complete set. The Husky ones I had in hand, and I couldn't do it, you know. So I try, you know, I'm one of those people, I would rather abstain from having ratcheting wrenches and then double up the price of the Huskies to get the Capris type of a thing. And that was no different here. Now, I want to bring in, again, for another direct comparison, I've got the 5/8 Capri. And these are pretty slim, I would have to say. They're kind of oriented a little bit differently. If we have the ratcheting mechanism on the left-hand side, you see how Capri is inverted right there? So that's the opposite of our SKX frame. To make that point more poignant, I believe, we'll just come in right here. There they are side by side. Note that we've got 5/8 and SK visible. It's visible here, it's just upside down. You think, no worries, flip it. That's the same thing. So that, if you're really particular about how you store things and you're not going to use the wrench tray or the foam tray or whatever tray, keep that in mind. That might actually influence some of you. Now I want you to listen to this Capri wrench. It's actually pretty good too, but this has more of the traditional ratchet sound. Listen to this. And my fingers are muffling it a little bit, I believe. But now I'm going to come in with the 5/8 SK. I can hear the difference. I hope you can too. These are actually really good in my opinion. Now, lifespan on either, I cannot personally attest to. I've gotten to use these just a few times, and I will continue to do so. But that ratcheting mechanism is really, really good. Now, the other big difference between these two, and this might be worth noting for a lot of you, if you're looking at that and you're like, man, what's going on? There's all kinds of crazy action. It doesn't look anything like that one you just had. You know, that's because this is a 6-point ratcheting wrench, which is kind of rare. It's typically going to be 12. And that's what we have here with the Capris, right? Some people prefer 6, some people prefer 12. I'm not really sure why. 12-point tends to round things off a little bit more than a 6-point, right? So kind of pick your poison. Some people, again, do prefer one over the other, swear by. I know a lot of old-timers that when the 12 points came out, they got them and they swore that they gripped better. And maybe they do, but they also round corners off, so, you know, kind of whatever your preference may be, but that is a big difference between these two. Now, my biggest complaint after having these out of the rack remains I don't have an option of picking up a bigger or a smaller size. I definitely think that's something SK should have. I personally wouldn't mind seeing them offer it as a set. I'm talking like maybe, even if they wanted to stop at 15/16, maybe do that, come down, add 2 at the bottom as well, 5/16 and a quarter. That would make it, what, a 11-piece set, right? I think that would be a really good deal. And if they don't want to do that, stick with the 7 and then sell those 4 wrenches as a standalone. Come down 2 sizes, 5/16 and quarter. Come up 2 sizes, 7/8, 15/16. If enough people complain about needing a 1-inch, make it. You're going to sell it. Now, I will concede this will cover the vast majority of people. But like I said, with the small stuff, which I'm thinking, you know, trim panels, grill, bodywork, you know, that type of stuff, that's where these would be really nice. And these are pretty thin at that point in time. I think that might actually turn out to be thinner than the Craftsman as we come down. Obviously, as we step up in size, these get noticeably larger. As you can see that profile on the 3/4 there. But am I happy that I purchased these? Yes. Do I wish that I would have done it sooner? No. And here's why. Number 1, the wrench size limitations, and number 2, the price. Now, after using these here on the bench and just kind of getting a feel for them, which again, I genuinely believe packaging and initial impressions 90% of the time is going to dictate the end quality. Now, there's times you could get like a plastic bag with a wrench in it from someone, and it could be the best wrench you've ever had. Typically, though, it's going to correspond with the packaging, and if you get a plastic bag with, like, you know, Scotch tape on it, that's going to be a piece of crap. That's just the way the world works, right? So my thoughts on these: I'm going to use them, I'm going to abuse them, I'm going to see how they hold up. I'm going to be doing the same thing with the Capris. And if SK would bring these out with the 7/8 and 15/16, I genuinely believe I would bring a set in for work. There's a lot of times on motors, which granted that'd be 5/8 and 9/16, but certain styles, the fan cover is a total different design, and you have to come in and there's all thread running through, and a ratcheting wrench would be so nice. It's a situation I speak of where you cannot get a socket in, right? And you have to come in and use a wrench, and if you had a slim profile, which to their credit, while it is a thick handle, it's kind of a slim profile. There's not much meat on the flip side of the ratcheting mechanism. So if we could get the 2 bigger sizes, actually I would probably just buy 7/8 and 15/16 to begin with at work. But it's definitely a limitation, in my opinion, that should be corrected. Now, life cycle, how they wear, how they last, if I'm going to snap one in half in 2 weeks, I don't know that yet. If I do, I'll be mad, but glad that I should get it replaced for free. But I will definitely keep you posted. If you have used these, if you have used the Capris, let me know. What do you think of their overall performance over time? Again, I've not had either set, particularly with the SKs we just unboxed, to provide you with that information, but initial impressions on both are fantastic. The Capri set, the advantages of that one, if you're just looking to jump into one, way more sizes, lower price. You know, it is what it is. But we might do a comparison between these two. I just want to use them first. I don't like to just speak with, you know, hypotheticals and theoretical stuff. I want to come in and say, yep, redid the suspension, and this sucker is flawless. Or, man, you know, I got through 2 leaf spring bolts and it broke. So that's where you really know. Initial impression, off the charts. But overall durability remains to be seen. It's something we can only do over time and through usage, which is why I bought the things, right? So that is how they come, though. You can only get them in this tray, which is not a bad tray, but, you know, having come with the Capris with the foam tray, I'm really starting to like that. However, if you're, you know, the type that hangs stuff on pegboard or on the wall, need something handy at a bench, maybe you're assigned a work area type of a deal, this would be really good. There's nothing wrong with it. It is cool that is there. Kind of would have been neat if they would have, like, made that green or had a green backdrop or something, you know. That's just me nitpicking things, you know, giving ideas, maybe. But you got to admit, like, if there's a green plastic sheet back here, that would look really sweet, in my opinion. Let me give you an example right here with the box. Man, this is awkward with a tripod. See what I mean? Does that not look better? Makes the SK pop out. And we highlight that sort of X-frame design on the I-beam. So, that is that, though, man. Probably rambled on a bit more than I should have here, but hey, this is a significant amount of money. Even at the sale price of $140, which I got these for on Amazon, 7 wrenches, that's $20 a wrench, which for a ratcheting wrench, I guess it's understandable, but again, that's going to be over the threshold most people are going to want to pay. Now, if you're a hobbyist, a do-it-yourselfer, if you're tired of cheap tools, right, you kind of learn that you get what you pay for more often than not. At 140, you're probably like, man, sign me up. But at 275, I'm not touching these. I'll be honest with you. That's why I didn't buy them when I first saw them. I was like, man, those look glorious. But I'm not spending $300 for 7 wrenches ever. All right, so the camera cut off when I reached the max recording time. But for a lot of people, 140, that's going to be the sweet spot. You're like, you know what? I'm getting a quality tool. These are awesome. They're a lifetime. They're going to be passed down to my kids. That's a steal. I feel the same way, but at 275, I don't. When we double the price and we're still getting the same 7 wrenches, I feel like that's out of my price range. It would be great quality. I would still love the tools, but not at that price point. At that price point, I'll go with Capri. I'll buy 2 sets of Capris. I'll get the SAE and metric Capris. I'll get the Huskies. I'll get Gear Wrench, Tecton. You know, many of you have told me to get Gear Wrench and Tecton stuff. You would save money going that route, and you could probably get 2 sets from any one of those competing brands, right? Outside of maybe like, you know, Mac, Snap-on, Matco, all those Cornwell type of things, this is a very expensive set of wrenches. But again, on the sale price, which is roughly half off of retail, I feel like it's a pretty fair price. Now, my biggest knock, again, give us more sizing options, sell them individually. If they did that, I would bring all 4 of them in, no questions asked. I might want to wait, you know, until they're like $20 a wrench too. I wouldn't necessarily want to pay $60 for one. But main thing is, I'm going to use these, abuse them, see how they hold up. If you've got them, let me know how they've performed for you. That will be, honestly, you can probably still get this price, I would think, through around Christmas time. Similarly, if some of you have these, if you jumped on them when they were brand new, you know, $280, $300, whatever they were, how have they performed for you? Have you broken them? Are they the greatest thing you ever had? Would you pay double the price for them? They're that good? Or is it a deal where you're like, man, you know, I wish I would have gotten something cheaper? And that, honestly, firsthand feedback from real-world usage, I believe, is the most valuable feedback you can give on something like this. But over time, I will be able to provide that for you. So with that said, thank you so much for watching. These are SK X-Frame ratcheting wrenches. They're crazy good, at least here on the bench. 1.7 degree swing arc, which I don't think I covered that, but if you were unaware, let's say that we're tightening a grill fastener with this little guy, right? So we're kind of up in a small area. We get the wrench head on there because we couldn't use a ratchet. With a typical ratcheting wrench, right, we would have to come in and we would have to reset it like that to get it to travel and turn maybe a quarter of a turn. With the 1.7 degrees, watch this, I can just tap that and we're back in action, right? So when you get to the end of your stroke, basically, instead of having to come all the way back here to turn it another quarter of a turn with a cheap ratcheting wrench, when we come all the way back here to our, let's say, grill point where we can't recede any further, we're going to turn the fastener much quicker. And crazy quick and fast. Again, that's, until you've had that in your hand and you feel it like I did and you hear it better in person, that is super impressive. Now, that's about all I can tell you. I'm pretty happy with these. Again, I feel at this price, $140 for the set, I don't think it's that bad. And I will leave it at that. By all means, let me know your thoughts on these, in particularly if you have them or if you have used them. That said, as always, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you are subscribed here on YouTube. Jump through the flaming hoops, ring the bell 3 times, pick up the malt vinegar bottle and smash it along John Silver's. I don't know what you have to do to be notified that we've uploaded a video anymore, but you can also follow along on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. And with that said, I will catch you back here for more action from the shop.